Yeah, if you get a little on your lips, it's not a big deal. You want to use the little corners of the brush to kind of get in little crevices. You don't want any sort of spots that don't have makeup in them. And it can be a little bit tricky to, say, get around the nostril. So use those crevices. Or use the little corners to get into the crevices. Stay open, but look up. You also want to get all the way to the edge of the eyes as well. If you miss a spot, it's really going to be noticeable on stage. It'll be kind of like a blank or shiny. It'll look kind of blue. That is if you're white. Close, please. It's okay to get it in your brows as well, because you will be able to clean up after. But you, again, want to use the little corner of your brush to get it into these crevices and bring that all the way to the lashes. And turn around to this side. And again, use the corners. You can open, look up to the ceiling. Again, you want to kind of get it onto the jaw. Okay. Depending on the shade of your kit, it'll have different color names. Many of them will be character shadow. Your shadow and your highlight are in the black capped cases. I use a small brush because I like the precision. I work pretty quickly. I'm going to start with cheeks on her just because, given the prominence of her cheekbones, they're really easy to find. Sometimes I'll start in the middle and kind of work my way to the hairline. Remember, it's just under the widest point of the cheekbone, deepest in the longer part of the hollow between cheekbone and jaw. It narrows toward the hairline and it narrows toward the cheek. And then you kind of pat a path through that. And that is about as deep as women will want to be. Men, a little bit lighter. Now to get lighter color, start with just using less on the brush. The easiest thing is just, get a little less makeup on the brush, and then use a consistent stroke. You can also achieve less color by pressing lighter. That actually takes quite a lot more skill, so just get a little less on the brush. Now with a nice thick layer of foundation, you can see it almost looks like it's blending in already. So I just have to kind of tap along. I have the advantage of a bunch of brushes, so I'm going to use a clean brush with no makeup on it and just kind of smooth out these edges so they blend a little more softly into the skin. They don't look chunky. You can also do it with the pointy end of one of the Q-tips, just to soften up around the inside. Keep a nice straight shape under this cheekbone, because that's what's really going to make your cheekbones look sharp and prominent. Do they match? Yeah. Now I'm going to clean brush and really use the shape of your brush too, right? I'm not jabbing the color in, I'm swiping along so that I still have that nice straight edge, and it's that straight edge that I use to create these contours. Now, if you think you may have gotten too much on the brush, you can use your wrist as a palette, kind of dab it in, make sure, okay, all the excess is wiped off. Okay, temples. And again, this is sort of a slightly curved shape at the top, following the sort of that spongy area. It gets longer in the center and a little bit narrower at the edges. Now, can you see, turning this way so that I can see, can you see how this is quite a bit lighter relative to this? I just got a lot less makeup on the brush. Here, feel free to watch my progress. And envy my blush collection. It's epic. And again, I'm kind of pressing just as hard, but I have a lot less on there. You can always start light and kind of layer. Better to have to add more than to take away, because it's really hard to take away. It never really wants to go. All right, that is definitely not symmetrical. So keep checking into the front, looking at yourself head on. And again, so nice and soft. Basic corrective for the small stage. We're talking about the Wilma, 300 seats to even 500 seats. You are not going to need, say, this much color someplace small like the lantern or even plays and players. Like, you're really going to see this makeup at a space that size. Better for a very small stage to just do, if you're a person who wears makeup generally, a little blush, a little eyeshadow, what you might do anyway. Men generally just don't need it.
So like the Kaplan.
Yeah. How many seats is that?
It depends on how they set it up.
What about the Arts Bank?
Let me picture the Arts Bank.
It's like 220.
Two.
Also
Yeah.
rigged. The audience is rigged.
Yeah. I think you'd want to do that. You might, now this is what tech is for, right? You get under there and, you know, your costume designer, your lighting designer is like, yo, cheekbones, you know?
Yeah.
So you can adjust from there. But a little bit is helpful. Now, of course, you also don't want to be the only one in makeup, right? Better to go without, or just even guys do a little bit of powder blush just to add back in color, than be the only one wearing makeup and it's visible. Like, consistency is pretty important across a show. All right, so nice and light across the nose. And even I like, before I blend it, like to check this one. Again, stopping above the nostril. Given the shape of Maggie's nose, I didn't keep it totally like consistently straight all the way down. I kind of widened a little bit at the end because that's sort of the shape of her bulb. If I wanted to de-emphasize that for some reason, you could keep it very straight. It's a very feminine shape she has, so I want to kind of emphasize that. We all hate our nose. Now this is also, you want to keep this center line very straight, unless you kind of want to emphasize sort of any curves or bumps or crags that you have in the nose. Great, and it's just a little bit. It's very hot in here. All right, so a little sort of half moon crescent down here. Essentially, it's so narrow on most people, it's just tapping the width of your brush in kind of a crescent shape across that. Like, I didn't even make strokes. I just went, bless you. I just kind of tapped the length of the brush. Like this for me? Great, relax. Now, it's very warm in here today, so I'm going to find when I'm done, I have to go back. I can already see the nose is kind of disappearing. I have to go back and kind of revisit that stuff. Totally fine. Especially, imagine, right? You've been in this room when it's just filled with people. All right, so the jaw, you want to come right under that natural jaw and kind of hook around it. You don't want to bring it all the way into the chin either. Leave it out on that outer plane of the face. If it's easier for you to find the jaw, instead of starting at the top of the jaw and drawing down, you can sort of start at the bottom and flick up, and your jaw will stop it for you. You might have to clean it up a little bit. Now I can still see some of those lines in there. Under the jaw, I'm less concerned about getting the color really perfect. Better to kind of leave the line slightly visible and ghostly than to blend it so much in this heat that all the color disappears and you have to redo it. If I wanted to make her jaw appear more prominent, I would even hook around. So gentlemen, I'd even hook around sort of this knob here and might come under the ear with just a slight area, like a little wide band, hook it around, and then narrow, wider, narrow. I started where that sort of hook begins on her, right at this knob, and I started narrow, wider, narrow. You will be tempted to, as you do this makeup, kind of bend and look in the mirror. When you straighten up, it's going to be totally in the wrong place. So the best thing to do is really with the nose and with the jaw, kind of look sideways into the mirror, but keep straight up and down. Otherwise, you're going to stretch the skin. It's going to come out in the wrong place. Nose, I have to do it again. So, in your practice for next week, men explore deepening areas other than what you've seen today. Don't expect you to get it totally right just on your own, right? We'll make color adjustments in class next week. Also, you're going to have to translate some of these shapes to your own face. Some of you are going to have sort of different cheekbones or a different shaped temple. Kind of finding that placement on yourself is really the goal for next time. So, getting it kind of as smooth as you can, making some decisions about this color being lighter than this color or what, right? So men, it's like these two colors kind of want to match. This doesn't. On women, like this kind of wants to match this. Right, so sort of just reversing the lighter and the deeper. Nose. Yeah, great. Because it's so hot in here, I've gotten a lot of foundation on this brush. I'm just going to kind of wipe that clean. For the ladies, the eyeshadow is a blended curve. So I'm going to do that on her. For the men, it's just another pat-a-path shape. I'll show you that and then endeavor to kind of remove it. So this is the men's eyeshadow, right? Close, please. What you want to do is come just above sort of the natural curve that you can see in the eye when it's open. So you can sort of see it when you look in the mirror. With your eye open, you can, raising your eyebrows up, you can just sort of see this natural curve in here. You want to be just above it because when you drop your eyebrows back down, it's going to sort of hide in the crevice of the eye. The idea of the eyeshadow is to make your eyes a little bit bigger than they are in nature, and that's for everybody. We're going to do the same with the mouth. Make it a little bit bigger than it is in nature, and actors and performers, you know why.
Because our eyes are the window to ourselves.
It's absolutely true. Yeah, psychologically, if we can't see you, we can't hear you as well. Yeah? So that's another reason why we don't want to emphasize the nose too much. It's going to make your eyes and mouth disappear. And they're like, who is that nose that I can't hear? Right? So we want to draw attention to the eyes and the mouth. So gents, a little bit of pat-a-path. Close, please. And again, probably just the width of the brush. It's going to be a narrow shape from the center outward and down. I'm going to draw that for you on the board so you can see it. All right, so. So eyeball, right? Brow. So if this is kind of the natural, more what I mean when I do sort of the ladies version. Okay, so here's the blended curve. So close, please. Stay closed. And I'm doing kind of a skinny line, but I'm kind of going back and going over it just to make sure.
Is that in the
I
crease,
have
or
enough.
is that right above the crease?
It's right above the crease. I'm gonna wipe it clean. I'm not going to blend straight up. I'm going to blend kind of toward the brow bone. That could be a little more beautiful. Stay closed. Yeah, I just got a little bit over the line in the center, so I'm going to go back, just lay in, just make sure this edge is nice and solid. Now I'm going to be extra careful instead of rushing. Place that right on the edge. Now, before she opens, since I have the advantage of some extra brushes, if you have in your personal collection kind of an eyeshadow brush, sort of a soft bristled brush, it would be great to use it to tap a little powder in. But another clean brush will do, even a Q-tip dipped in a little of your powder, just a little bit into your face powder. Kind of tap it so all the excess is gone, and I'm just going to very lightly, just to set it a little bit, because our eyelids are really oily, and I don't want, as soon as she opens up, for it to go everywhere. Stay close for a second. And then if it's a really hot room like this one, I'm just going to doubly sure, I'm just going to press a little paper against your eyelid. Press it and just kind of roll your fingers across. You don't want to swipe it in any way. It's just going to take off a little bit of extra oil. Go ahead and open. See what that does? It's just slightly above the crease, but it really opens up the eye. Yeah? All right. So I'm going to use my larger brush for highlights. Play around, see what works for you. Again, highlight is more forgiving. That's why I can use a larger brush. I don't need as much control. Highlight, like your contour, is in a black case. So just going to do, since it's a woman, just an oval, vertical lines in the center of the forehead, just to create a little sense of dimension there. If you find that really you like to work with the small brush and the big brush doesn't give you control, at this point you would clean off your brush, soap and everything, wipe it dry a little bit. Again, about 3/4 of an inch just above the shadow here. You can see that. It's just a little bit bright. It shouldn't look super visible or chalky. Now what I've done is I was blending shadow with this finger. I switched to this finger. Not a bad idea for beginners to stop between shadow and highlight and wash your hands before you start tracking shadow all through. And I'm going to do just a little around this temple. Too much and she'll look robotic, but just a little bit will sort of draw attention to the shape. I don't always do it. If you have a super prominent brow and you don't want it to look like that, skip that step. Again, the nose is horizontal lines that happen to be roughly the length of this brush down to the tip. Just blending up and down into there. Same along the jaw, just a straight area. Highlight is generally much simpler than the shadow because the shadows have all these sort of intricate diamond and triangular shapes, and the shadow is just a stripe. So again, vertical lines. Highlight, 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 highlight. A little oval on this fat pad on the chin. Maybe vertical lines like we did on the forehead. So blending back and forth through it. Now, you want to be careful with this in a small space, but if you'd really like to draw attention to the voluptuousness of the lip, a tiny little shadow, and let's keep this sort of ladies only, in this, what's it called? I always want to say this.
I'll think of it.
Yeah.
L-A-B.
It's not no nasolabial fold. It's not nasturtium. That's a flower, but it's something like that. You'll think of it. I do it just in this little crevice, just a few brush width horizontal lines. Can kind of draw. See just a little bit of attention to the voluptuousness of the mouth.
No. See how much I know about the anatomy?
Well, particularly, yeah. What, time check?
4, 5.
5:27.
Somebody else do.
Okay, okay.
I'm just not ready.
I do.
Alright, so if you want to come get a real close look at the blended curve, feel free to invade our personal space right now. I'm going to do the other side on her as well. Okay, close please. Vertical lines, and then I blend. It takes a fine hand not to get that all into the edge of the blended curve. Oh, I blended one side more than the other. Yeah, if you find that one side blends up higher than the other side, it means on the side that's lower, you didn't get as much makeup on the brush. So just go ahead and add another layer and then blend that upward as well until they match. Great. Now, the easiest way to do the lower lid is just get a very light layer on your brush. And go ahead, instead of doing a pat-a-path, you can go ahead and paint the highlight across the lid. Now you're going to see that it's much more opaque, it's much more visible than any of the rest of the makeup. That's why we don't just paint everywhere. We do this pat-a-path so these areas sort of melt into the skin and look less obvious. On the eyes, which we want to make pop anyway, a little bit more, I'm coming to this side first, is fine. A little bit more thickness is fine, but you'll see why you don't want to do this everywhere, because it just looks too makeup-y. So gentlemen can do this as well. Also make sure you get into those little crevices, stay closed, those little tiny micro wrinkles in the lashes, because the makeup, sorry, I should have touched your cheek first. You want to bring this almost up to the edge of that blended curve, but do not touch. Stay closed. Alright, I'm just going to take the lids are very oily. I'm going to take just a little bit of paper and hold it onto her eyelids and then tap with a finger. So I'm going to come to this side first. You don't want to swipe. Next this side. See the way it sort of sticks there? That means, right. By intermission, especially if it's hot out there, you'll probably have a tiny mess anyway. And you can always just redo the eye, touch the eye up at intermission. many actors in big places find that it's kind of a calming way to bring them back into the top of the act. So again, a little powder on the hand, on the brush, tap the excess, stay closed, and just brush over this. Now, can you see why I don't want you painting everywhere else? It's really opaque. But when she opens, go ahead and open, it really makes the eyes look big. Yeah. Now, if you're playing a character at a stage this size and you want sort of visible eyeshadow, you can do a slightly lighter layer of this shadow and then kind of paint color over it before you powder it. Like press some colored shadow along the outsides. If you're a sweater, like really, really a sweater, something I like to do is layer powder on the cream. So you can still tap it with the powder, but let's say,
Crazy color.
all right, I'll do this. I'll try this guy and see how that looks. This sort of sparkly coppery. Do be careful with anything sparkles. It will tend to look
Sparkly?
sparkly. Yeah, it'll kind of catch light, which can be fun, which can be nice. But anything, especially like iridescent, just looks wet. So I'm just going to tap into some of this colored shadow, and I'm going to press it into that blended curve. And it's going to absorb some of that color. You see the difference? It's gonna be not much color difference. It's going to give it more staying power. Yeah. So that's why I chose this color. Now you could use purple. If you were to press something really bright or bold on top of that shadow, it would read mostly as that pure color. Yeah? You could also, if you were in a long-term contract where it was really important to get vivid color, you could buy a cream shade in the same shade to match the eyeshadow. On this side. But again, you want to keep it just north of that blended curve edge so you maintain this really sharp line. That's what's going to make the eye look open. Great, lovely. You can open. A great way to make the eye look larger is also to extend the brow a little bit. I'm going to use the pencils that come in this kit because it's only fair. But like I said last week, I prefer, especially for lighter skin tones, I prefer a blonde brow pencil.
Which kind did you say?
I like the Maybelline. They come in a 2-pack. They're like $5. They last forever. I keep one in my car for eyebrow emergencies. You know, because you have eyebrow emergencies.
Oh,
Definitely.
Thank you. I appreciate the support. Yes. Great. So the best way to draw on brows for sort of any situation, and because she's also very fair-skinned, I'm going to darken them all the way around. The brows are a great frame to the face and drawing attention to the eyes. So if you have very wispy or not very prominent brows, or if your brows are, say, lighter than your hair, which can happen for some people, or you're wearing a wig, which is a different color than yours, and you want to kind of like deepen to match, the best thing to do is little tiny hair-like strokes in the direction of hair growth, not like ka-chunk, ka-chunk. Little wispy strokes. I'm just going to very lightly. Might extend it out just a little bit. A little bit of an exaggerated brow, like this way, is also good for making the eyes look bigger. See, so it's enough to sort of draw a little more attention without it not looking like Maggie anymore. Yeah, it's just a little more. Yeah. It's a good idea for everyone to buy mascara, especially if you're building your own kit. For the purposes of what we're doing in here, I'm not gonna like dock you if you don't use mascara, but especially guys, for everyone, you know, like for drawing attention to eyes, it's really helpful. You don't need to buy like black, like dark brown is good. Deeper skin tones, you could buy black if you wanted, but dark brown is just enough to sort of separate, elongate the lashes, and draw attention to the eyes. I'm going to skip that today because doing mascara on other people is tricky business. Oh, great. So before I do liner, I'm going to do the blush. This blush takes a little, here, I'll start with your brush. It takes a little practice. It can be bright on some people. Actually, that's not too bad. With anything like this, like color that I can't remove it once I put it on, I'll do a little on the wrist just to make sure that I don't have too much. You want to smile, and you want a circular area. So what I'm going to do on Maggie's, I'm going to sort of come to the very center of the cheek, plop, and then I'm going to sort of draw a circle out from the center. If you can kind of then teardrop onto the cheekbone a little bit, which sort of widens and thins out the face, but smile real big. So starting there, really lightly, just kind of tapping, and then creating a circle that kind of teardrops out. Yeah. Now, because she is so fair-skinned, I'm going to take a little, I'm going to do it just with the powder brush. If you are a super sweater or you have anything but the very, very lightest of skin, you might want to play around with, and I'll show you how to do it. This color is a pretty close match to this, so making sure you have a clean finger. It's really the same thing. You can finger apply, so start from the center and then work your way in circles outward. So starting from the center and then working out. It'll give you a little more staying power. Now, you're going to need a little more than you think you're going to need. It's going to look more prominent than what feels natural for just, you know, out in the world. But trust me, higher. The light is going to tend to wash out all skin tones and take sort of the golden color out from deeper skin tones and the rosiness out from lighter skin tones. So you want to get about as much as this. It's going to feel a little prominent. Guys can go slightly lighter. And you can choose either powder or cream guys for this size stage. Yeah, ladies, if you're doing a lot of costume changes, you're wearing a wig and your scalp can't breathe, definitely start with the cream and then layer with powder to get the staying powder. Great. Time check?
5:40.
All right, perfect. Essentially in this kit, your brow pencil and your liner pencil are the same thing. I'm going to, and only because Maggie is light-skinned and light-haired, I'm going to do liner in the brown. You also have black. Guys, start with brown, and if it looks too light, you'll know right away. But black can be a little too heavy for most men because it tends to look made up. Because we don't have black anywhere on our faces. You know, even for those of us who have really, really dark brows, they're really, really dark brown. So start with the brown. Ladies, unless you're, blonde with very light skin, start with black. If you're blonde with light skin, start with light brown. For this, now eyeliner will take a left turn when we do it for a larger stage. Ladies, I'm going to start at the center of the eyelid. And you can either do a smooth stroke out to the edges, or like the brow, little wispy strokes that kind of connect, whatever feels steadier to you. Ladies, you're going to swoop out just a little bit at the edges to lift up the eyes. Gentlemen, from the center all along the lash to the edge of the lashes, just a line. Okay, close please. If you've never done eyeliner before, it does take a little practice. These pencils tend to start out a bit hard and chalky, so I like to warm them up with my fingertip. I'll sort of soften the wax up a little bit. For those of you who haven't done liner before, sort of pulling it a little bit taut can help it keep from getting caught in the folds of the skin. Open. Close, please. So when she opened, there's a little spot that I didn't quite get, that there's still highlights showing. So if that happens, if you see sort of skin between the line and the lash line, what you want to go in is go into the eyelashes a little bit and just wiggle the pencil around just a little bit. Good. And open. She is very still. Great. So you see how brown is great on her, but it's not going to be enough drama for a lot of the other people in the room. Now what I also did was I came just a little bit outside of her natural lash line. So ladies might want to do to, again, increase the length of the eye. When the eye is closed, essentially that line, okay, so eye is open, right? Eye is closed. Essentially what I did is I drew the line and went just past that natural lid line, sort of back toward the brow. Not close, so that when she opens, just lifts up just a little bit. Now, guys, you're going to want to start at that inner corner and just line to the outer edge and stop. Okay. Lip color. The colors in your kit are not excellent, but they'll certainly do for our purposes. Try this one. That's going to be crazy not so nice on many of you. This one might turn a little brown on many of you, but mixing them together will probably get a decent color. Men, for small stage, the goal is just to kind of give your own natural lip color a little oomph. Finger applying it will keep it from looking made up. So just take a pinky finger and you kind of like that and tap along and kind of smack. Ladies, you can either use a tube of lipstick and follow that, or apply with a brush will help you kind of get the edges. I'm just going to wash the chalk. For a really natural shade, depending on your skin tone and your lip pigmentation, like this on me is just a little bit more oomph my natural color. This is a little lighter. So finding a color that's just a couple shades brighter than your own natural lip tone. Or for a real like bold makeup look, you know, a bold color. Your small brush is good for applying this. I want to start on you. Yeah. So she's got a little foundation on her mouth. Chances are she's going to blend right in when I put the color on it. I like to start from the center. And kind of use the edge of your brush to define that edge of the lip. Your kit comes with a lip pencil. I think they look a little early 90s. Yeah, but if you have trouble, if you go out and say a few lines and all your lip color wears off, it is good for staying power. What you want to do is define all the way around the lip and then color the lip in as if it's a crayon. I don't like it because it's really drying, and I hate that feeling of dry lips anyway. But if your lipsticks, if you have to kiss somebody, absolute a must, right? Lip liner first. It will give something for the lipstick to adhere to. And again, you want to sort of find that natural shape. If you have very narrow lips and would like to make them appear more full, now is a good time to start exploring that. You don't want to do that all the way around the edges, like out to the outer edges, or you'll look like a clown. But you'll be surprised at how much you can kind of redraw the bow and dip under the center fullness of the lip. She's got wonderfully full lips, but I'm going to do it anyway, just a little bit to show you. I'm just going to come under that natural lip line just with the lipstick. And so long as by the time I get to the edges, I've matched up with a natural lip line again. It looks pretty natural. And we can do it in the center as well. Trouble with doing this from an angle is you can get yeah. So I'm not going to bother doing the other liner, but you can see sort of where I've come out on this side. Dun, dun, dun. And now do a double check. Once you've been working on yourself for about 45 minutes, particularly if you have very dry skin, look in the mirror again and make sure nothing's disappeared. Because if you have super dry skin, some of that, your skin's going to be like, oh, moisture, and suck that makeup into your pores. It's non-communicogenic, it's non-acnogenic, but if your skin sucks it up enough, you're going to break out. So if you have super, super dry skin, or as we head toward the winter that becomes a problem with you, about 10 minutes before you start the makeup, any kind of unscented, like facial moisturizer, put it on, give it 10 minutes to dry, your makeup's going to disappear a lot less. Is anything disappearing? No, the nose is getting a little bit, like, uneven. So I'm just going to take my clean brush and just sort of tap into it and even it out. Did I forget anything? No. Oh, nice. I didn't do that for applause. Questions, confusions. Right. So the big difference is men. You're not doing the blended curve. You're doing a pat-a-path in about the same shape, though, but it's also going to be not as deep. Men, you're going to do heavy temples and jaw. Ladies, you'll notice that the eyebrow or the eye shadow, I can manage to go a little bit deeper than the cheek, but they're about the same plane. Noses, let's keep them light, but men can go a teeny bit heavier. Yeah. Notice the shapes on the cheek. It's narrow right into the hairline under that cheekbone. Widest where the shadow is going to be widest. Narrow, wide, narrow before you hit that front plane. Kind of curves without being robotic on the temple, fading away into where things stay soft. Narrow, wide, narrow. Little half moon, really a quarter moon, crescent. If you're a man and you want to sort of bring out the prominence of your forehead, with highlight, a little light oval up here, and then maybe a couple little crescents here. Ladies, just one oval in the center is good. Shape is important. Remember that nose, you want it on the nose, straight down the center, in a little triangle just on the nose. Yeah. Yes, great. So go practice on your own. You'll have questions by the time you get in here next week, and if you don't have questions, that's how I'll know that you haven't practiced. I'll also know you haven't practiced if you get in here and your foundation looks crazy. Test out the color that we chose for you last week. Put it all over your face.